The central focus for this lesson about making crystals with borax would be to see if chemical reactions are taking place and to observe changes. The four standards that I can relate to this lesson is MSPS1-2, 2PS1-2, 5PS1-1, and 5PS1-4. So this is meant for upper elementary levels, but it can work in lower elementary levels. It works best for upper elementary because those students do know when a chemical reaction is taking place and how molecules and substances move. But for lower elementary, they would just be able to observe the reactions taking place. This lesson can be used when doing a unit about saturated solutions or rocks. It could be done at the end of the unit just to kind of wrap everything up. Some difficulties that you might find in the classroom is that it can get a little bit messy, so just telling your kids before to be careful and clean up after themselves. The main benefits from this lesson, though, is that it can be very inquiry-based, and students are collaborating with their peers when discussing what happens or what they want to happen when they are creating different solutions. Microwave. So the process for this experiment is to first boil water and then take 8 tablespoons of borax to pour in your cup. Once the water has boiled, you'll pour the boiling water on top of the borax and stir with the spoon. The first option is to make just kind of like a clump with your pipe cleaners. This will have the crystals form all around the pipe cleaner. Use multiple pipe cleaners to make it bigger. Once you've created your clump, this is what the crystals will form on. You can take another pipe cleaner to help hold this down into the water. So you'll have your pipe cleaner sitting in the water, and your straw is used to not let the pipe cleaner fall to the bottom. So the key thing about this experiment is that you don't want your pipe cleaner in the water to be touching any of the sides of the glass or the bottom. So I now have my 8 tablespoons of borax in here and my boiling water. Pour in. Stir, it'll get a little bubbly and fizzy. What's happening is that the hot water, the particles in the hot water are expanding, which allows the particles of the borax to go into the water and get dissolved in the water. You will notice that this is a super saturated solution, meaning there's more borax that won't dissolve than there's water. This helps the crystals form. So you then place your pipe cleaner so it is fully submerged into the water and it's not touching any of the sides or the bottom. That's it. You sit. In order for this to be an experiment, you will want your students to try new things. So what I came up with is, instead of boiling the water, I have room temperature water with the same amount of borax, and as you can see, the borax did not dissolve. This is 24 hours later. And my other idea was to add more borax than what I did. So this one was boiling water, but I added 12 tablespoons of borax rather than 8. So it's definitely a very super saturated solution. So how does this experiment work, and how are you going to explain it to your students? Well, what happens is when you pour the boiling water into the borax, the molecules that are in that boiling water are moving so fast and so spread out that the molecules from the borax can actually get absorbed in that water and dissolve into the water. Well, eventually that water is going to cool down because it sits out at room temperature for the experiment to take place. So when the water does cool down, the molecules inside that water slow down and slowly compress on the borax molecules. So when all that compression happens, those borax molecules, the only place they have to go is out of the water. And they come out of the water as a solid, as a crystal. 24 hours later, and we're ready for the results. For this cup, the experiment was done correctly with 8 tablespoons of water, 8 tablespoons of borax, and boiling water. So we can go ahead and pull this out. It's very heavy. And on the pipe cleaner, you can see the crystals. The next cup was room temperature water, so kind of cold water, and the same amount of borax. On this pipe cleaner, you just see powder, the powdered borax that's wet. No crystals on this pipe cleaner. And finally, we had boiling water, but more borax. We had 12 tablespoons of borax. There are a lot of crystals. Oh, it's stuck. And we see lots of crystals now on this as well. Finally, to wrap up this lesson, you'd have your students write at least a paragraph explaining when a chemical reaction took place, how the crystals were formed, and they would be using at least 2 vocabulary words and evidence from what they observed after they pulled the crystals out to explain what happened.